Right. I hope my sound's going to get through.
It looks like I'm the only person in the class.
Yes, I reckon that might have happened a week or so earlier. Yeah. It's great. All right. Good morning, everybody. It's just a bit after 9:30. So I'll start now. I just sent a text message. Let me know if the sound's not working for some reason. Rather than showing my face today, I thought I'd just use slides and stream the slides. A couple of things I want to talk about, mostly, or to start with, about the business report, the individual assignment part of the business report. And then I want to talk a bit about the group part of the business report. So we'll start off with the first bit, the business report. I'm about halfway through marking the individual reports, but just a little bit further than halfway. I hope to get a little bit more of that done in the next today and tomorrow. I hope to have them finished by tomorrow, and then I'll get on with marking the class activities and the lab marks. So I'll probably be into next week before I finish everything. So for those who... Right, so let me see. I've got my microphone muted. That'd explain it. Okay, let's give that another go. Go back to the slideshow. Right. That'd explain it. Okay, so the sound seems to be working a bit better now, hopefully. All right. Now, I'll start again. And let's hope everything works fine. So today I'm not going to show my ugly face. I'm just going to have some slides. I'm going to start off by talking about the individual part of the business report, and then I'll talk about the preparations you need for the group report, and then we'll move on to looking at what was on the in the lecture for today. Okay, I'm about halfway through with marking the business reports, and I hope to get the business reports marked by tomorrow, hopefully about lunchtime, and then I'll get to work on the class activities, and then after that the lab notes. So those a bit behind with the lab notes. You probably got till Thursday afternoon or Friday before I really start looking at them. I'll probably go into a bit into next week before I get everything finished. Okay, so most of the ones I've looked at were okay. Some were really good. I gave 5 to a few, gave to 1 to some, because some of them weren't so good. For those who've had their marks should have had comments and emails via the comment thing from Google Docs by now. So if you haven't had anything, I haven't marked your work yet. Some people missed the point entirely, maybe because they didn't attend the lectures and didn't hear the explanations that I went into at great length. So that's one good reason to come into lectures. Okay, some missed the point. They had executive summaries and introductions and all that sort of thing. They weren't necessary. If you read, even if you just read carefully what it said in Blackboard, you would have realised what I was marking on, and you realise that you didn't need that stuff. You do for the group one, so don't anybody make the mistake saying, well, it said we didn't need that. You do need it for the group one, but you don't need it for the individual one, or you didn't need it for the individual one. Now, some people gave me a long description in their own words, which was nice, of what the client's requirements were. Right? They need an information system. They need a point of sale system. Yeah, terrific. That's not a solution. A solution means you're going to recommend products that the client can install now. Okay, so that's what a solution is. There was one which I thought was pretty fascinating. If you're the person, don't feel too embarrassed, but they really suggested having Excel as a point of sale system. I thought, that's cute. You've got a queue of 20 people at the cash register and you're trying to fiddle around with Excel. Didn't think that was much of a solution. Reminds me of this story about the carpenter who, he knew how to use a hammer, so everything that he looked at was a nail, just because he had a hammer. So you know about Excel, so you've got to try and make it do everything. I wouldn't suggest using Excel as a point of sale system for a whole lot of reasons I don't need to go into now. And then I think it was the same person suggested for the knowledge base. This is in the nursery, I think version A. that they use access, which is good, but access by itself is not a solution. You have to have somebody write an application in access in order for the people to be able to use it. And that, you know, perhaps not the best solution. Okay, you need something the clients can apply now. The other thing people did, and this was probably the one with the computer store was the worst of this one. Right, yeah, right. I need to make a change here. I might get this right sometime. Okay, the slide should come up in a minute for those who weren't watching. I'd forgotten to put the screen sharing back on again. So, okay, so you should be able to see this. You've only missed this is the first slide. So what I've said applies to this. Now, some people, I think it's particularly in the computer store one, dealt with some requirements that were there that actually weren't there. There's a description of what the client was doing now, but that wasn't what they were asking you to do. What they're asking you to do was to set up a wide area network. And the fact that they had a customer relationship management system, that was already there. You didn't need to deal with that. And then some people missed essential requirements. Like they dealt with half of it, but forgot the other half. I don't think your client would be very happy if you wrote a report and actually didn't address all their requirements. So, good, so it's working now. That's good. All right, so try and, when you're doing these reports, make sure that you're dealing with the requirements that you're actually asked to deal with, and make sure you get them all. So, don't need too many, but you mustn't miss any. Okay, so it's not easy, but then, you know, life isn't easy, and you are at university after all. All right, now let's go on to the next slide. There were two groups, at least so far, that I've asked to make appointments with me, which they haven't done yet. So they were so far off track, I thought their main report's going to be a disaster. So let's get them back on track. So if you've got a message from me saying, please get in touch with me and let's have a talk, please do that. Next week would be a good time so that we can make sure that you get some decent marks for the group report. Because I'm afraid that a fail is looking you in the face the way you're going. I said earlier the most difficult one was the computer shop wide area network. The trick there is to propose a good solution for the wide area network, and we need to come up with telecommunications products. Just don't tell me use Telstra, because if you've ever dealt with Telstra, that's only half the story. You need to try and make sure you've actually got products. Now, some people are suggesting using the internet to carry the wide area network. That's fine, but just remember the security of it. You just can't send, well, you can send wide area network traffic across the internet without protection, but it's a bit like, I don't know, going into kindergarten when you haven't had a flu shot. So make sure that you address the need for a virtual private network when you come to the final report for that one. Now, another problem was that some people came up with really good suggestions for products, but they'd be great in Texas or Minnesota, not so good in Australia because there's no Australian support. Can you imagine ringing up Americans who can't understand the Australian anyway, in the middle of the night, so you get them during their business hours, and try to explain your problems? Not very nice. So if you've suggested a product that doesn't have only has an American phone number or email address as support, then perhaps that's not the right product for your customer. There are products that are supported for all the requirements that you need that are supported in Australia. So you need to find one of them. This particularly goes for transport management systems. So make sure that you get products that are supported. Oh, accounting systems too is the other one. And point of sale. Not much point having an American point of sale system if you can't talk to Australian banks. That doesn't work. You really need to deal with Australian banks, which therefore, if you have a point of sale system, it definitely must be supported in Australia. And vehicle tracking. Like most Americans don't know where Australia is. They think it's just south of Germany. And so you could have your truck driving across Minnesota or Texas nice and happily, but probably not from Melbourne to Brisbane. So you need a vehicle tracking system that is supported in Australia and actually knows where Australia is. Okay, so they're just things that you need to watch and fix up in your group report, which I remind you is due in week 8. Okay, now the next steps. You've got your lovely bright shining mark. Hope it's 5, but even if you've got a 1, there's still time to recover. So what are you going to do next? So the first thing you should do is to meet as a group, and you do need to meet, even if it's virtually, you know, Google Hangouts or Skype or whatever. You do actually need to meet and decide which solution you're going to go with. Now, you might choose a collection of solutions from the different people in the group. There might be some people who suggested one aspect really well, but the other part wasn't any good. So you've got to choose your best solution. Then you've got to plan the report. So work out what headings you're going to have. And then you've got to allocate the tasks to the various members of the group. So each person in the group has a job to do, a section to write. That's only the first step, though. If you just allocate the tasks, everybody puts theirs in, it's going to have a dog's body of a report. There's some more work to be done. So everybody writes their draft report in a Google document in their group folder, business report group folder. Everybody contributes to that Google document. Remember, use different colours for different people. So I know who's contributed what. And it's done as a document. I suppose you could do it as slides, but probably better as a document. Okay, so you write the draft report, then you need to check through everybody's work. So suggests that you swap around and each person reads another person's work and corrects the spelling errors and the funny sentences and all the rest of it. Make sure it reads as proper Australian English. You get away with American or English, but probably better as Australian English. And check that all the criteria have been met. At the end of the assignment document that's in Blackboard, there's a spreadsheet with the marking criteria. So make sure you've got everything in there, because I go through that and give you marks as to whether you've done it or not. So follow that criteria sheet. And then somebody should go through and make sure it all hangs together and looks as if it's been written by one person. It shouldn't look as if it's been written by 4 people or 5 people or 3 people or however many people in your group. So revise the report, make sure it hangs together and it all looks good. And remember, you're writing for the client, not for me. Make sure that it looks as if it will actually be able to be read by your client. So when the report is done, then you convert it into a Word document, download it as a Word document, and one of the group members goes through, removes all the colours, and makes it look smart so that it's ready to be given to the client. And then that Word copy is the one that's sent into Turnitin in Blackboard. So when I come to mark it, I'll be looking at the one in Turnitin to make sure that there's not all red because you've copied from somebody else. That it is, you know, it looks all fine. Then I'll actually mark the one in the Google. I'll actually mark the Google Doc and put comments in that. So the Google one is the actual one I mark, but you do have to have the one that you would present to the client in Turnitin in Blackboard. Okay, I'll probably say this again in week 7 and the beginning of week 8. And probably send out an email just to make sure everybody knows what I'm expecting. Okay. Now, that means you need to start pretty soon. Don't leave it to week 8. It'll be a mess. You leave it to week 8, you're asking for trouble. Because it's a group effort, you need time for all the processes that you're going to go through. Don't leave it to week 8. And I think from looking at some of the individual assignments, they were probably done on Friday last week. Some of them look like it. Give yourself time to get it done properly. Okay, now, I want to talk now about you doing a executive summary. Executive summary, writing an executive summary. Now, every report starts with an executive summary. It should be the first thing that you see after the front cover, even before the table of contents. So if I'm the client, I pick up the nice, beautiful report that you've sent me, I turn, and then the nice front cover, make you, you know, feel warm and fuzzy. This is the idea, is to make the client think that you're fantastic. Then the executive summary, and following that, the table of contents, and after that, the introduction and all the rest of it. So that's where it goes. The first thing they read, remember that these people are very busy, people in charge of companies are very busy. They may not read past the executive summary. So your story needs to be told in that one-page executive summary. One page, no more. Don't go on to the second page, even if it's one line on the second page. Just one page. And it's your chance to convince the client that you know everything. And they're very happy to pay the fee that you're going to charge them. Right, now, right inside the front cover, before the table of contents, before anything else. One page, no more, no less. Now, use plenty of white space. Bullet points are good. The idea is that it's easy to read. If you have a whole lot of dense text, they may not bother to read it. So plenty of white space, must look attractive, and use the whole page. Don't just have half a page. You've got half a page, spread it out, make it look as if it's the whole page. Okay, so what's in the executive summary? And this varies with the type of document, but it has these, everything has these, every executive summary has these points. So there are 3 of them. This is the first one on the screen at the moment. What is the client going to get? Okay, so what are you going to recommend? So you're going to have a recommendation section, but it's going to be a brief summary of what's in the recommendation section so that the person reading the executive summary gets the whole story about what you're going to recommend. Then, when is it going to be done? This probably doesn't apply so much to the one you've done, but like when should they be able to get this? Should they do it now or 6 months' time or whatever? As I said just before, this is probably not so important for your particular report, but for most reports it is, particularly if you're proposing to do work for them. And then how much? Business people always want to know about how much. So the price is important, and just don't put the detail, just the whole amount, the total amount. You should budget so much for this work. The detail comes in the main part of the report. All right, so that's the executive summary. And the executive summary should be written last, by the way. Don't try and do that first. So if you're allocating somebody to do the executive summary, that might be the person who's going to do the final tidy up of the whole document. So don't do the executive summary until the rest of it's been written. That's the last thing that's written. And they are hard to write. In fact, most consultants dread writing the executive summary because they're really hard to write. So you have to think about it. It's not something you can dash off in 5 minutes. You write it, then you read it, and you think about it, and you write it again, and so on. So there's a lot of hard work there to be done. Okay, so that's about, I think I've used up my half hour. I'll stop the streaming session now, and if you've got any questions, I will be on the Google Hangout for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to stop and go to the lab and try and get to the lab at a reasonable time, rather than being late, as I have been all so far. Okay, so I'll see you all in the lab. Remember, next week is a break week, so I won't see you next week unless you make an appointment with me. And then I'll see you in week 7. So, cheerio for now.